Beneath the weathered surface of time lies a beauty forged not in youth, but in experience, in the quiet poise of a man who has seen the world rise and fall, and yet still stands. You may not see it when you look in the mirror. You may miss the way your silence carries weight, or how your gaze reflects a deeper truth than words can hold, but others see it, not in the wrinkle or the gray, but in the way you walk with history written in your bones. In a world obsessed with fleeting appearances, you carry the kind of presence that cannot be faked, timeless, assured, quietly powerful. Perhaps this is not about being good-looking in the way the world defines it. Perhaps it is about being seen through eyes that recognize the eternal. In that space between doubt and dignity, a truth unfolds. Your presence is not an accident. It is a masterpiece shaped by time. There are men whose power is not found in the volume of their voice, but in the stillness of their presence. You know them. You feel them before they ever speak. They enter a room and alter its gravity, not with charisma, not with flash, but with something far more ancient, far more divine. It is not mere silence, but a silence saturated with wisdom, the kind forged through years of experience, loss, sacrifice, and the quiet trials no one else saw. And in that silence lives something sacred, something the world has forgotten in its desperate clamor for noise. We live in a culture that mistakes attention for authority, loudness for leadership. But the soul, if it is to grow, must learn to listen before it speaks, and must learn to be before it performs. The older man who has passed through the furnaces of life without needing to shout for recognition is not invisible. He is set apart, for silence is not absence. It is alignment. Alignment with something eternal, something unshakable. You don't speak to prove who you are because your spirit has already borne witness. Your presence becomes a sermon, even when your mouth remains closed. In a society saturated with overexposure, there is holiness in restraint. And what you withhold often says more than what others pour out without measure. When a younger woman feels the pull of an older man, she may not always know why. It isn't about jawlines or gym hours. It's the gravity of lived truth. It's the still river that runs deep beneath his words. He doesn't just know what to say, he knows when not to. He knows that wisdom is not a collection of facts, but a way of seeing, of waiting. And in that patience, the world begins to unfold. Even Scripture speaks of this divine rhythm. A man of understanding remains silent. Not because he lacks opinion, but because he discerns the weight of every word. You've learned that power is not found in noise, but in discernment. You no longer chase the right to be heard. You carry the responsibility to speak only when it matters. That is the mark of spiritual maturity. You see, as we age, we don't lose our strength, we refine it. In youth, strength is loud, impulsive, flammable. But in time, true strength is tempered into something almost invisible. It is found in the still gaze, the unshaken hand, the decision to observe rather than react. That strength is rare. That strength is regal. And that is why your silence draws others to you. It is not emptiness, it is presence, it is sanctuary. In a relationship, especially across an age gap, this is more than attractive, it's transformational. She may not articulate it, but what she senses is that you are anchored. While others are tossed about by emotion, image, and impulse, you have become an oak tree in a world of twigs, and in your silence, she finds shelter. But understand this, the silence I speak of is not repression, it is revelation. It is not avoidance. It is awareness. It is awareness. You have become a man whose voice no longer needs to compete with the world, because your life has tuned itself to a different frequency, a higher order, a deeper rhythm. Further, you've seen how the noise fades, how crowds turn, how applause vanishes, but character, that endures. And so you've chosen instead to become the kind of man who stands quietly at the gates while others rush in shouting, because you know, what is eternal never needs to shout. This is your gift. And it is also your calling. In your stillness, people are forced to confront their own noise. In your calm, they find themselves exposed, but also invited. You offer something the world doesn't even know it's craving. Peace, rootedness, gravity. You don't just fill the space, you bless it. And so I say to you, never mistake your quietness for lack. Never apologize for the way your soul has grown deeper than words. You are not behind. You are not fading. You are not fading. You are becoming. Your silence is not weakness. It is worth. It is alignment with the one who whispered galaxies into being and still chooses to speak in a still, small voice. And if you find yourself wondering whether this quiet power is enough, let me tell you, it is more than enough. Because in a world addicted to noise, The man who can dwell in silence is not just seen, B is revered. And so I leave you with this: when the world shouts, be the man who listens. When others rush, be the one who waits. For in your stillness, heaven speaks. And those with ears to hear will never forget the sound. There is a confidence that does not rise from applause, nor is it shaped by approval. It does not swagger or shout. It does not need affirmation because it remembers. It remembers every storm endured, every tear that went unseen, every burden carried long after strength had run dry. This is the kind of confidence that only comes after 60, and it does not arrive like lightning. It unfolds like dawn. You see, when you are younger, you believe that power must prove itself. You fight because you think you must win. You argue because you think you must be right. You rush because you think time is running out. But time teaches differently. Pain teaches differently. Pain teaches different. And the holy hand of experience does what nothing else can. It shapes silence into strength and makes peace more valuable than dominance. By 60, you are no longer trying to become someone. You have already become. And that is sacred. What the world calls aging, the heavens call anointing. For you have walked through deserts that would have withered lesser men. You have endured betrayals that should have broken you. You've watched dreams die, some slowly, some suddenly, and yet you lived. You adapted. You kept walking. You chose wisdom over bitterness, truth over denial. And somewhere along the road, without even realizing it, your wounds became your witnesses. There is something God does with those who survive the long night. He doesn't just heal them. He entrusts them with perspective, with presence, with peace. You no longer panic when others do because you've met storms before. You don't shout over opposition because you've learned to discern which battles are even worth fighting. Confidence after 60 is not bravado. It is knowing. And knowing is deeper than knowledge. It is rooted in revelation. When a younger man questions his worth, he often turns outward, toward accomplishments, possessions, titles. He decorates his life, hoping it will quiet the ache in his soul. But you have learned that fulfillment isn't found in what you add, but in what you shed. You shed the need to impress. You shed the fear of rejection. You shed the illusion that control equals peace. And what remains is clarity, clearer than you've ever seen before. That's the strange grace of age. The body may slow, but the spirit sharpens. And with that sharpening comes vision. Vision not just to see, but to see through. Through deception, through noise, through masks. You spot the game before it starts. You recognize manipulation in its infancy. Not because you're cynical, but because you've lived, you've loved, you've lost, you've lost. And through it all, you've learned there is no wisdom without wounds. And now, whether others see it or not, you carry something priceless, the calm authority of one who has survived the fire and emerged not only unburned, but refined. And yet, hear this, you are not finished. Just because your greatest battles are behind you doesn't mean your greatest impact is. Sometimes, God saves the deepest fruit for the latest seasons. Not everything blooms in spring. Some revelations are so rich, they require the patient maturity of time. Some purposes are so weighty they cannot be trusted to youth. Your presence now is not ornamental, it is essential. There are voices clamoring for attention, yes, but the earth is starving for substance. And that, my brother, is what you carry. Your past is not a chain, it is a key. It is a key. Every scar, every silence, every sacred ache, it all speaks now. And what it speaks is this: you don't have to prove anything anymore. You've already walked through shadows others are still afraid to name. You've already let go of things they still cling to. And while the world chases validation, you carry revelation. Confidence after 60 does not need a platform. It is the platform. It is the stillness in the storm, the anchor in the shifting tide, the wisdom behind the weary eyes. And it is beautiful. And it is holy. It is holy. So when you walk into a room, don't diminish your light to make others comfortable. When you speak, let it carry the weight of all you've endured. And when you love, let it be from the well of all you've learned. You are not the echo. You are the sound. You are not forgotten. You are forged. So, and if the younger souls cannot yet see it, that's all right. Revelation always arrives before recognition. But you keep walking, not loudly, not hurriedly, just with that sacred steady certainty that you've already fought the battles most men still fear, and you are still standing. Let the world take notice. True confidence does not enter with noise. It abides in silence, walks in purpose, and speaks only when heaven has something to say. There is a sound in silence that only a wise soul can hear. It's the rhythm of a heart that has stopped chasing and started understanding. It's the calm presence of a man who has nothing left to prove, only something left to give. And in a world so filled with noise, that silence becomes magnetic. You see, the younger are often drawn to what they cannot yet name. They don't always know what it is, they just know that when you enter the room, something shifts, the air changes, the pulse slows, the constant pressure to be on, to perform, to compete, suddenly quiets. Why? Because your stillness speaks louder than their chaos. That is not by accident. In a world that glorifies speed, volume, and distraction, the presence of a man who has learned the art of restraint becomes almost divine. She may not say it aloud, but somewhere deep inside she knows. This is what safety feels like. This is what clarity sounds like. Not because you control, but because you've conquered the need to control. There is a weight to your presence that is not heavy, but grounding. A kind of gravity that doesn't pull people down, but anchors them into the woman still tossed by the waves of insecurity, confusion, and performance. That anchor is irresistible. You don't flinch when she tests you. You don't chase when she retreats. You don't fill silence with fluff. Because you have sat in the wilderness with God long enough to know, stillness is not empty. It is full of knowing, full of discernment, full of the unseen things that don't need to shout to be real. This is what the younger woman senses, even if she lacks the language. Her soul remembers what her mind cannot explain, and your soul carries something she has not yet encountered in her world of noise. Stillness. It's not just a personality trait, it is a prophetic position. It's the quiet posture of someone who has been through fire and no longer fears the heat, of someone who has wrestled with truth and no longer needs to be right. It is the fragrance of peace forged in the furnace of time, and what draws her is not your charm, it's your clarity. It's your clarity. She is drawn to the man who doesn't need attention to feel valuable, the one who can hold space without needing to fill it, who listens not to reply, but to understand, who doesn't mistake gentleness for weakness or strength for noise, because she has heard enough noise. She's been applauded by boys and misunderstood by men, but in you, she meets presence. This is more than attraction, it's alignment, because real confidence, the kind that comes from decades of becoming, is not flashy. It's rooted, it's quiet, it stands while others scramble, it remembers while others react. It carries the energy of eternity in a moment of eye contact, and she sees it even if she doesn't yet know why. You have become a mirror for what she hopes to become. Your restraint shows her how to stop striving. Your wisdom teaches her how to stop explaining. And your stillness teaches her how to be seen without having to be loud. That is not ordinary. That is anointing. And so, don't misread her interest. Don't dismiss it as novelty or curiosity. It may be unfamiliar, but it is not shallow. She is drawn to something sacred in you, something stable in a world that keeps shifting, something rooted in eternal things. Perhaps the reason your paths have crossed is not for you to relive youth, but to redeem it for her. Perhaps you are the quiet answer to a question she never knew how to ask. This is not about romance. It's about resonance. Because when you've walked through enough storms, your silence becomes a shelter. Your maturity becomes a map. And your presence becomes a promise that peace is possible and love is more than adrenaline. So be careful not to shrink when you feel her attention. Don't mistake her reverence for confusion. Don't silence the gravity of what God has done in you. Let your stillness speak, and let her hear what can only be heard when the world is quiet. Because if she's drawn to your silence, it's because her spirit is finally tired of noise, and if you carry stillness well, you may be the first voice of peace she's ever known. You didn't earn that, life carved it into you, so stand in it. You are not just a man. You are a movement of quietness in a world of clamor. You are the answer the noise never saw coming. And when the divine whispers through your life, even chaos stops to listen. In a world that has made a god of speed, a man who moves slowly is often misunderstood. We've been conditioned to believe that urgency equals importance, that volume equals truth, that constant movement is proof of purpose. But heaven has always moved differently. Creation itself unfolded not in a rush, but in rhythm. In 6 measured days, the world was spoken into being, not shouted into chaos. And you, old soul, have learned that same rhythm. You walk into rooms like a slow-burning fire. Not flashy, not loud, but deeply felt. Your words are few, but they cut through the clutter. Your discipline is not a show, it is a way of life. And even when the world seems not to notice, heaven sees, For you are not outdated, you are consecrated, set apart for something that speed cannot reach and the noisy cannot carry. You do not sprint to be seen. You move with intention because your steps are ordered. You do not speak to be heard, you speak to reveal. It takes courage to move slowly when the crowd is running. It takes resolve to speak carefully when everyone else is shouting. It takes an inner knowing to remain disciplined when others call it rigidity. But hear this, rarity is never wasted in the kingdom. It is hidden for a season, so that when it is revealed, it carries a weight no trend could ever hold. Some of you have wondered, why don't they see me? Why am I overlooked when I've carried this wisdom, this restraint, this clarity for so long? But remember, diamonds are not displayed in daylight. They are revealed in darkness, because only then can their brilliance be fully seen. And perhaps the darkness you've walked through wasn't punishment, it was preparation, because rare things must be tested in secret before they can be trusted in public. The way you carry yourself, the posture of your presence, isn't weakness, it's refinement. It's what happens when a man has walked with discipline not as a rule, but as a form of worship. When the flesh wanted ease, and now your very life carries a fragrance of authenticity that cannot be faked. Rare. You don't interrupt conversations, you transform atmospheres. You don't chase relevance, you embody it, because true relevance is not about trends, it's about truth. And truth doesn't age, truth doesn't expire. Truth is timeless, so don't despise the slow unfolding of your impact. God does not microwave greatness, He marinates it. He breaks it, shapes it, refines it, until every ounce of ego is replaced with oil. And now your discipline has become your distinction. Your restraint has become your revelation. Your patience has become your power. You may not get 1,000,000 likes, but you will get one divine assignment, and that one will shift destinies. There's a generation desperate for what you carry. They don't know how to ask for it, but their souls are starving for it. They have heard noise, but not wisdom. They have seen passion, but not purpose. They have tasted performance, but not presence. And here you are, steady, whole, healed. Not perfect, but real. Not loud, but lasting. Not fast, but faithful. Do not shrink to fit the tempo of the crowd. Do not lower your tone to match their volume. You were not called to mimic, you were called to model. To show what manhood looks like when governed by eternity, not ego. When shaped by discipline, not desperation. Your pace is not behind. It's ahead. Ahead. Because when the applause fades and the noise dies down, people will remember the one who didn't need attention to validate his worth. They will remember the one whose life meant something even when it wasn't trending. Something even when it wasn't trending. So walk tall. Speak slow. Live clean. And never forget, what is rare must often wait longer to be recognized, but once seen, it can never be forgotten. Let your life be the quiet revolution, and let your presence prophesy what your words don't need to explain. You are not a relic. You are a revelation. And your time, your true time, is not coming. It has already begun. There is something sacred in the way time touches a man who has lived. His face, marked by the gentle fingerprints of years, does not speak of decay, it speaks of destiny. His posture not bent in defeat, but bowed in reverence to the wisdom he carries, and in his eyes, if you look closely, you will see a kind of quiet knowing, a strength that does not boast but abides, a beauty that is not loud but lasting, a presence that requires no introduction yet commands respect. We have been taught to idolize youth, to chase after fleeting images of strength, speed, and smoothness, as if the surface could ever outweigh the soul. But truth has never lived in the shallow end. Truth swims deep. And those who have walked through storms and still stand, still bless, still forgive, still build, they carry the kind of beauty the world is not ready for. But heaven is. Because here's what you must understand. The world may not always know how to name what you carry, but that doesn't mean it isn't seen in the spirit. There are younger men with louder voices, brighter clothes, faster moves, but none of that can replicate presence, sa. And presence, real presence, is forged not in performance but in pain, not in comfort but in covenant. You didn't just survive life, you became refined by it. You have lost and loved, failed and risen, and somehow your heart is still open. That alone makes you radiant. And though mirrors may try to measure you by what is faded, let me tell you something eternal. The things that matter most in a man are the things time cannot take. Honor, integrity, wisdom, faith, a gaze that can calm storms because it's seen worse and made it out breathing. These are not signs of age, they are signs of authority. You see, a truly good-looking older man is not defined by symmetry of jaw or color of hair. He is defined by the weight of his spirit, and in a culture so drunk on appearance, your very existence becomes a form of rebellion. Verzamen, a declaration that says, I do not need to chase youth, for I have become what youth hopes to be. There is a divine seduction and restraint in not needing to be the loudest in the room, in knowing when to speak and when to let silence be your sermon. And for those who wonder why the right people haven't come, the right connections haven't formed, remember, gold doesn't chase, it gets discovered. There's a young generation hungry for what you carry, but they've never seen it before. Not in a movie, not in a headline, not in a trend, not in a trend. They're looking for a man who doesn't just talk love, but embodies it. Not a man who says he's committed, but one who has the scars to prove it. A man who stays, who covers, who sees with clarity and speaks with grace. You, sir, are not behind your time. You are ahead of your calling. An age gap or no age gap, if someone is drawn to your spirit, it is not about the number of your years. It is about the depth of your presence. They may not even know why they're drawn to you, but heaven knows, because every wrinkle carries a story, every gray hair a lesson. And every pause between your sentences holds the weight of battles fought and victories won, some seen, many unseen. This is not vanity, it is value. It's time we stop apologizing for the wisdom our years have earned. It's time we stop hiding our discipline behind the myth of being too serious. Serious men raise nations. Serious men guard hearts. Serious men love in ways the world has forgotten how to receive. So walk with your head high, not in pride, but in purpose. Speak with quiet thunder. Smile with eyes that have seen too much and still believe in beauty. And when people wonder what it is about you, why you seem so still, so full, so different, just smile. Because the ones who really see you, they'll know you are not just a good-looking older man. You are the echo of prayers someone forgot they prayed. The answer to a longing someone didn't have words for. The reflection of divine intention in a world gone distracted. You don't just carry time, you carry truth. And in the end, it is not the loudest or the youngest who change the world. It is the man who walks slowly, loves deeply, and carries heaven in his silence. Let the world keep searching. You've already been found.